that good? So, I have COVID-19. I was tested positive yesterday. Um, so far, my symptoms have been like migraine from hell, um, chills. I've had about 100-degree fever, give or take, um, and abdominal pain, diarrhea, things like that. I don't mean to be gross. Um, so I've been feeling really crappy. I was vaccinated 2 times, both doses with the Pfizer vaccine. Um, I didn't get a third or a fourth or a fifth or however many boosters there are now. But I just wanted to share my general experience with the disease. But I also, um, it's sorry for the glasses, like, light burns. Like, I feel like a vampire because I can't even see in the light. So that's why I'm wearing sunglasses, if you're wondering. Um, right now I'm like sweating, even just wearing this sweater. Um, so I wanted to like share not only my experience with COVID, um, which I'm very surprised based on my general exposure this whole time since 2020, when all of this really got out of control. I'm really surprised I'm just now getting COVID, to be honest. Um, but I also wanted to take this time to address anti-science. And I know this might piss some people off, or it might um, sound stupid to some. Um, but I've run into a lot of rhetoric and like conspiracies surrounding the entire pandemic of COVID-19, and I've kind of refrained from commenting on it like publicly or even privately that much, just because I don't fucking know why. But there's a dangerous superstitious attitude when it comes to vaccination, and I think by extension when it comes to science in general, because it's one thing to be healthfully skeptical, but the amount of misinformation I've seen and witnessed um, surrounding the vaccine and the pandemic in general is like startling. Um, for example, it's believed by some that like this entire pandemic is essentially a way for the powers that be to take away our rights, um, to diminish the liberty of individual choice by mandating vaccination, all this stuff. Um, I'm not one to defy the idea of liberty, because liberty is, in my belief, essential. Like, liberty is probably the highest value that there is. But I also don't want to not recognize the um, the downside of conspiracy and the downside of misinformation when it comes to very tangible illnesses, because while I'm not doing well. There are some people who are not doing very well at all, um, who have experienced COVID. Um, but basically, what I wanted to rebuke is conspiracy. There's this idea that there's somehow a coordinated effort. Now, I don't want to get the conspiracy wrong, so feel free to correct me if I'm missing some of the key players, but there's this coherent, cooperative, underlying the entire pandemic and the science that backs it up. To the point where people believe that there's some nefarious element orchestrating this whole thing. Okay, I'm getting like super hot right now. Hold on. Holy hell. To the point where they're orchestrating this whole thing for some kind of, money or power or whatever. But think logically for a second, I just want to say. And I'm sorry if my thoughts are kind of jumbled right now. But think logically for a second. Think of all the scientists in the world. Think of all the independent laboratories, all the doctors. My uncle is a doctor in California. Not one of them, not a lot of them, even if one did, not a significant number of them have come out and said that these vaccinations outweigh the risk. Like the risk outweighs the benefit of getting vaccinated to any great degree. I'm sure you have like fringe people who are, denouncers and shit. But I think we're living in a world of misinformation where flat earthers, people who fucking think seriously that the Pope is the Antichrist, like, the flavor of that unsubstantiated connect the dots in some sort of underlying matrix has gained such traction that it actually is a public health threat in a lot of ways. And what do you do about that? And where does that cross with personal liberty? Or where does that cross with freedom of information? But it would have to be such a conspiracy among scientists in order to conduct. I mean, all it would take is one dissenting famous doctor, fucking Dr. Oz, or something, coming out and saying the vaccine is not worth the risk, it's much better to not be vaccinated. But of course the conspiracy theorists will say there have been scientists and doctors, but then they disappear. Okay. But really this whole thing is a symptom of being unscientific. Science always changes. Because science by nature develops. And what I mean by science, I don't mean human beings. I don't mean scientists. I don't mean the interests, yes, the material interests of companies, corporations that profit from scientific developments. I don't mean that. I mean science as a method, by definition, evolves and develops and changes with each coming of data. Like every time data shifts, conclusions must be redrawn. But that's not to say that it's unreliable in the sense that people can't deal with change. People are so unscientific in their mindset because they can't deal with change. They need some unwavering dogma. They need to make sense of a chaotic world. And when that chaotic worldview, evidence is presented against it, critical thinking is absent. And in the absence of critical thinking, what can replace it is a sickness that can develop into real danger, like of misinformation, and have actual consequences. Certainly, there are groups out there. There are groups of powerful people. There are shadowy corporate, government, religious, whatever entities which seek to expand their power, which control huge amounts of resources. And to say that there is any conspiracy at all at play in the world, to deny that is stupid as well, because there certainly is conspiracy. I'm not saying that there are no conspiracies. But what I'm saying is the general anti-science snake oil, the same thing as televangelists who get away with their fake healings and their fucking stupid money laundering. That same mentality has grown into this like mutated blob that just like misdirects so many people. There's nothing wrong with getting vaccinated. The risks, and that's the other thing I want to touch on. Yes, there's a risk to vaccination. There is a risk to any kind of medicine. Anytime you mess with the balance of the human body as a basic principle, anytime you mess with that combination, there are going to be various results. And if you take that over hundreds of millions of people, any medicine you do, any modification you make with any kind of medicine or vaccination is going to have adverse effects somewhere. That's just the way it is. But if you were to say that, for example, if it were to be outright taken and been like, okay, out of 10,000 cases, one case, someone had cardiac inflammation from taking the vaccine. Even if it's 0.0001%, people freak out because then they'll be like, holy shit, the vaccine is dangerous, you know, because they want 100%. They want, people only listen to 100%. They don't listen to degrees. It's very hard to sell degrees, even though the reality of life is nothing but degrees. So the assessment shouldn't be, is it 100% or is it not? The assessment should be, is it worth the possible risk? Or does the risk outweigh the possible benefit of it? If you were outside and it was freezing, would it behoove you to wear a jacket? Or are you going to defy the wind and not put a jacket on just to suffer? Like, oh, well, you're sick and you're vaccinated. Okay, I'm not a scientist, but I'm pretty sure that a vaccination reduces the rate of transmission between people. It's not a cure. There's no cure. As far as I know, viruses are incurable. I think it's viruses. They're incurable. The only thing you can do is arm your body for the inevitable attack of a virus. You can't eliminate it. As far as I know. Maybe I'm wrong. But that's what I've always heard. But yeah. Don't be misled. I would encourage anyone to get vaccination for the most part. Trust the scientists, the people, the experts, because there could be a million reasons why they can't explain in layman terms, or it would take forever why certain things are the way that they are. What's this inconsistency? How come this vaccine works but this one was found not to? Why is this effective and this isn't? Questions of the efficacy of vaccines and generally the trustworthiness of scientific consensus, no doubt, should always be questioned and available and open. 100%. Science is skeptical. To be scientific is to be rational. To be scientific is to be skeptical by nature. To examine. So I'm not saying don't question scientists. I'm just saying let's try to be a little more scientific about things. So, get the vaccination, I would say. There's no huge conspiracy. I mean, there is a huge conspiracy, but honestly, if they wanted to make a bunch of money, if the New World Order wanted to make a bunch of money, they could just invent an over-the-counter medicine. I mean, there's a million different ways they could make a bunch of money. I mean, at the end of the day, it's just about conspiracy. It's about misinformation. It's stupid. It's misinformed. It's fine. Even if there is a New World Order and everyone's going to be taken over by some government, it's gonna happen anyway. So just enjoy the ride. There's nothing we can do. It's kind of the process of everything. It's fine. Honestly, the vaccine is a teeny part of that whole thing, so it's fine. But anyway, I hope y'all are doing okay. I'm gonna go throw up.